You always want more in life, right? I mean, average is the enemy for me. Not only meet people's expectations, but exceed them. I like making more deposits than withdrawals.
You've created opportunity by always giving first.
Your why doesn't just come from working in a cubicle 9 to 5. I didn't write a check when Quest started, right? I didn't invest in it, but I created sweat equity. You can't make a product and have success without people trying. If someone wrote us as I heard about Quest, boom, they get 2 bars in the mail. We turned down Walmart 3 times. Imagine being an intern somewhere, fast forward 9 years later to have equity in a $1 billion brand. Who would not do that, right? You need 1,000 screaming fans. It doesn't matter whether it's drink, clothing, apparel. If you have 1,000 people screaming about you, you're bound to be successful. I call it pride and ownership. Take ownership and show the actual owners that you care enough that it's not just a 9 to 5 job. Bring value and have no expectation in return. It'll come back tenfold on you.
And we are back in LA. And guys, you should be very excited for this episode. The man, Bruce Cardenas, is here, and he's helped scale and exit Quest Nutrition for $1 billion. And the man's a relationship builder. He scales brands on exponential scale. And mate, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
No, thank you very much for
Came halfway around the world to see me.
Mate, with that jumper on, I did, mate. Mate, it's the brightest jumper in the world, and right. you're a bright fella. And I've obviously listened to a little bit about your backstory. It's an incredible one. Obviously, working in Hollywood security, knowing all the celebrities that you've known, and you've kind of worked your way in, and then gone on to be like a communication officer at Quest Nutrition, help them scale out for $1 billion. Unbelievable story. But I want to really go back into your journey, Bruce, because obviously, how did you first get into working with all these celebrities and into the security industry?
Honestly, it started, obviously I got out to LA and I became a police officer, which was a boyhood dream, joined LAPD, and about a year into my job, it's a modest salary, civil servant salary, and I wanted to make extra money. I had some security background from being in the Marine Corps, taking care of, I was on a security detail there. So I met a guy who was a retired sergeant and had a security company, so I started doing some details for him, and it just evolved. After about helping him for about a year and learning the trade, I got my own insurance and license and took a test, and I started my own company. And that started the process of owning a protection business, but obviously I built some really strong relationships to build that company out to where it was, because a lot of people have security companies and never really get to that level.
I think you understood from going and working with the LAPD, and obviously that was something you dreamed of doing, but you kind of realized when you got there that obviously working a job was never going to get you the freedom and the wealth that you needed to be able to live the kind of life that you wanted to, right?
Correct. Don't get me wrong. It's a great career, great path, great benefits, but I quickly figured out, listen, I really didn't know what an entrepreneur meant at the time, right? But I wanted to do more. And my father was, at the time, he had his own business and did multiple things back in the day. So, you always want more in life, right? Average is the enemy for me. And so I didn't want to just work 9 to 5 and end up retiring after 20 years.
When I studied you before this podcast, because I wanted to obviously try and bring the audience as much value as possible, obviously you were heavily involved in the early days in the exit of Quest Nutrition for $1 billion. And I kind of didn't understand how you'd pivoted from Hollywood and the celebrity type thing into Quest Nutrition. So how did you kind of get pulled into that?
So honestly, and I still have the security business. It's not, I don't do as much anymore because I'm doing a lot of other things, but I still have the security business. Honestly, I was at my peak in the security, and I met in the gym a woman named Shannon Penna, who goes by Quest Creator on Instagram. You guys should look her up. Met her in the gym, and you get to see the same faces, right? After a while in the gym, we made some small talk, and she basically one day offered me these couple protein bars. I said, hey, my husband and I started this company. You should check it out. And I was obviously into working out, and I've always had protein bars. And I think up until that point, the protein bars were just okay, right? And I remember I tried them, took them home, tried them. I saw her a week later and said, those bars are pretty incredible. The taste, the texture, and the ingredients, everything lined up for what you want. Obviously, you want a protein bar to be an enjoyable experience. And that kicked off our relationship. And I think maybe, I see her sporadically in the gym, and over a period of time, one of my celebrity friends was doing a golf tournament in a Riviera Country Club here. And I said, hey, listen, if you have some extra product, I could probably get it in some people's hands. Because they were nice people, the product was great, and I wanted to bring value to them. So I brought it to my friend who was the publicist for this golf tournament. And next thing you know, which I didn't even know the word content meant, believe it or not, I just knew, I asked my friend, hey, can we get this in some people's hands? And she said, I'll do you one better. I'll get some people to talk about it. They'll do, they had video cameras. There was no social media then, by the way. Facebook just started. No Twitter, no Instagram, nothing. And they did a couple on-camera, interviews, trying Quest bars on camera. I got some pictures of, Mario Lopez and different celebrities. And I shared that with them at the Quest, and they're like, oh my God, how do you know these people? And that kind of started the journey.
So, yeah, it just got your intrigue going, basically.
Honestly, they were cool people. Ron and Shannon, I knew them from the gym. They were nice. They were fit. And a little history, if you ever look up Shannon, her father was one of 3 people who beat Arnold Schwarzenegger. His name's Chet Yorton. He beat him, I think, in the 1967 Mr. Universe in the UK.
Wow.
So there's a little bodybuilding heritage there. So we've always been loyal to the fitness space, and she competed in fitness, and her husband's obviously in the fitness and as well as science and food and everything else. So that started the journey, and I helped them. I just started getting product in people's hands. I figured, you know what? I'm protecting people like Jessica Simpson. I'm doing the security on a set of Extra at Mario Lopez. So I would just bring product and say, hey, this is, one of my friends owned this company, and if, check it out. And it snowballed, because then Mario Lopez is giving it out on camera on the show. And about 9 months later, Ron, who's the chairman, founder, took me to lunch and said, hey, listen, we're stealing from you. You're doing way more for us than we're doing for you. And I said, no. And they said, we're going to put you on the payroll starting Friday. This is after 9 months. A modest salary, not enough to change my life, but it was like, okay, right? And that then kicked in that work ethic thing that I learned as a young man, like from my dad. I said, I'm getting paid now. So I literally had to switch gears and think, shit, now I really got to prove myself.
Bruce, who taught you that to give so much value on the front end to receive? Because I really want to break that down. Break that down for the audience, because I think a lot of people are going out there in this day and age expecting opportunities to drop in their lap. And I think what you're showing throughout this podcast and throughout your whole journey is the fact of, like, you've created opportunity by always giving first.
I don't know where it came from. The extent of where I think my work ethic came from and how to treat people properly with respect was from my father. He was a hardworking guy. I mean, back then you would have called him a workaholic. Now you'd call him an entrepreneur. He had a small construction business, but he always treated people well. He was our scout leader. While he wasn't really into sports, he still added value and was our little league coach and football coach, because he wanted to always do things with our family. But I watched him give back to the community. There's a trail named after him in our hometown, because he built this hiking trail, 12-mile hiking trail. So I saw how he always added value, and I remember he and I together from my Boy Scout, Merit for Life, Eagle Scout project, we started a recycling program together. So I don't know where it came from. It's in DNA or more from him, but I always wanted to give back. And then as I progressed in the Marine Corps, I did more than I was supposed to. And I've always taught people, bring value, not only meet people's expectations, but exceed them. And it's okay you don't have to have your hand out. It's sometimes okay just to do more, and the rewards will come.
Have you noticed as a kind of thing throughout your life, as a thread, that the more you've given, the more you've got on every level of your being?
Absolutely. I say this, we use this, like, I like making more deposits than withdrawals, right? So I like helping people, and if nothing even comes of it, believe it or not, sometimes 10 years later, something will come of it. I've gotten phone calls from people that say, hey, I haven't talked to you in 6 years, Bruce, but I had this opportunity. I remember you because of the following. And it's something that I did or met them, or I left some kind of impression because I brought them value.
You've left a deposit of value within within thousands of humans over your life, and then they bring you deals as a byproduct. And I think there's a lot that can be learned from that, because when you talk about what you went on and did at Quest and how that scaled, and how, the cash exit of 1 billion that it was exited for, which you would have done well out of as well, and I have no doubt about that. That was all because you seeked to help 2 people in the gym get exposure for their bars with your network of celebrity friends.
There was absolutely no expectation on my part of anything. As a matter of fact, I thought their bars are okay. They're good, right? But when I went and visited their office, which is important, it was in the hood. It was in the ghetto. And it was this little industrial strip mall, if you will, park. And there was no signage. And I went and visited their office for the first time after about 6 months. And literally the first thing I thought was, gosh, they may not be in business in a couple months, because it was such a small, run-down place, little broken down desk, but they just worked hard. So my point to this is, I didn't walk into this thinking, oh, this is going to be the next Amazon. I thought, man, maybe they'll be around, but they're cool people. So I enjoyed the connection and the camaraderie. And at the end of the day, I got product and I got it in people's hands, and it became my why. While I enjoyed the bodyguard business, and that's important, and I still do it, the fact people started writing us saying, "Hey, you've changed our lives." So I just wanted to keep bringing value to the team, and it was a blank slate, because I created the events department and the ambassador program because they were busy making the product and doing all the behind the scenes stuff. And I had the latitude, as I called myself an intrapreneur within a company. I wasn't an entrepreneur because I didn't own the company, but I was an intrapreneur. I had the latitude to do what I wanted to do, and I didn't run amok, but I looked at it like this great product, how do we get it in people's hands? And I wasn't a marketing genius, but I was a relationship genius. I figured, how do I get it in people's hands?
One thing that's coming out through this is the fact of you didn't only build relationships, but you also had a deep ingrained why. There's a lot of people that listen to this that might be struggling to find their why. How would you advise the people that are struggling to find their why, their purpose, to find it? Because when you walked in earlier, and when I met you, from the moment I met you until now and on from this, you're always lit up from the inside out, and that's because you have purpose. How can people find theirs?
It's interesting. I haven't always had a purpose. Maybe I have, but in different levels. But I feel for people that don't have a why, because I think it's so important to find it, and sometimes people never find it. I have had opportunities that I've been fortunate enough that from the Marine Corps to LAPD, and I've been selected for unique units. I think probably because of I was outwardly, expressing interest in doing things more than just a 9 to 5. And I tell people this: your why doesn't just come from working in a cubicle 9 to 5. It's getting out, knowing people, whether it's events, and whether it's networking, whether it's doing, like I said, it's not just a 9 to 5. One thing I learned at Quest was I could have easily just fell into a role and just done the events and nothing else, right? But when things needed to be done, it wasn't about sucking up. It was about, I saw the company had a need, and I did things. I put events on my own credit card. We didn't have credit cards then. The company had no established procedures. I'll tell you an example of something I did, which I share with everyone, because those same opportunities that are at every business in America, but sometimes people walk around with blinders on. So the guys were talking about building a studio, kind of similar to this, for a place for people to hang out and lounge when they came and visited. So we shut down from Christmas Eve until after New Year's, so it was like a 12-day period. I came in over the holidays and I built out the studio. I got our our color was blue. I painted the walls. I got a big screen TV. I got the furniture. I paid for it all myself. And I remember when they came back from holiday, I was traveling, and their exact words were, "Bruce must have been here over the holidays." They didn't think, who did this? But my point is this: there's always opportunities in business. I don't think you have to, people worry about staying in their lane and not stepping on people's toes. But at the end of the day, it's okay to bring added value and additional value. Like I said, whether it's real estate or in the clothing apparel, whatever business you're in, you're a gym manager. You could still do more than what's expected of you and exceed those people's expectations, which leads me to believe you'll find your why or your purpose
By
helping other people. And that's just what I've been fortunate enough to find.
And what would you say is one of the fastest ways that you've found to bring another human value? Just figure out what they need and then try and help them in some way pursue that?
Yeah. And I'll ask people, hey, what do you need help in? I mean, and 'cause, by the way, it's not always money. People always think, oh, you need to bring money to the table. There's relationships, there's energy, and there's time. I donate some of my time to some really cool charities. We talked about Dan Fleischman earlier. He introduced me to Trina's Kids, which does cool stuff for back-to-school programs for underprivileged kids. He runs the biggest toy drive in the world, I think. Those don't cost any money. Those are time and energy, right? Show up, invite 20 of your friends. Hey, you need to bring a on-wrap toy. And to me, that just brings camaraderie. And that, for some people, that could be their why. It could just be a charity event. It doesn't have to always be a monetary financial gain. And I've learned, over the holiday, I donate my time at a Midnight Mission. It's a homeless shelter downtown where we feed the homeless. I start out my Thanksgiving morning going there, long before I spend time with family and friends. But for me, it's my why. It feels good because I don't know if it's every human being should feel like this, but I feel like it. I think we owe the world to give back. And if we're fortunate enough and we've had some success or some latitude to do that, why not give back to other people?
Well, I think that, one, you're right, and two, you've found people with massive dreams and goals, and you found your why inside their goals, and allows your value to dictate them getting their why, and as a byproduct, you achieve your why along the way.
Exactly. I tagged, yeah, their goal was to make I don't think when we started to make $1 billion brand, but also once that trajectory started, they had a different why than me, but my why became I wanted to do what I was contributing to, changing people's lives.
Why do you think Quest made it to the $1 billion unicorn exit status, and other brands that had equally good of products over the years have failed?
I think there's a lot of things. We could argue this. Some of it's timing, luck. I mean, obviously the product was great. If anyone that tried it initially, the taste and texture was the first, and then you flip over and the ingredients were pretty clean considering it wasn't, food. It wasn't, chicken and broccoli. And I think that just took off. People started talking about it. One thing we did, and I tell people this that have a consumable brand, we always, you'll go to an expo, right? You've been to bodybuilding shows and expos, and you go by a booth and they have their product and they'll have it all chopped up with toothpicks in it, right? Very unattractive. Here, you can take we always gave out whole bars. I want you to experience it, a whole bar experience, right? And I would normally, if you came to our booth or I ran into you somewhere at the gym at Gold's Gym, I'd give you 2 products. Hey, here's one for you, and here's one for your friend or family member, whoever you, maybe a coworker. And that was part of our success. We got it in people's hands and they tried it and they were like, wow, where do I buy this? So that was also part of the success. And I watched other brands because I'm very keen on what other brands were doing. You go to an expo and someone pours, an RTD into a little shot glass, like a little dentist glass, like a rinse glass. That's not a really great experience. And a part of it is the experience of what you leave with your customer, right?
So if you're a new brand and you perhaps don't have the monetary power that other big brands in your space have, how can you leave a good impression on the customer like what you're talking about?
Well, I think you have to figure that into your whole plan, right? So one thing I tell people is fail fast, right? So I'll give you an example. We had a friend of ours started a cookie company. And I said, listen, you got to get this in people's hands. And he goes, well, I'm really tight on budget. I said, I realize you're making these cookies, right? But who's trying it? So it's almost imperative as much as making the product and packaging it. So this gentleman did a cookie company and he went to the LA Fitness Expo and he was right next to our booth. And he was very reluctant on sampling, but he sampled some, and people weren't buying. But at our booth they're trying it and they're leaving right there. They're buying a couple of boxes, and at the end of it, he was a little disgruntled. Say, well, this expo was ridiculous. It wasn't worth my time. I said, well, you tested something out. People tried your product and they didn't buy it. So that means either you have to go back and reformulate because that's a true test if someone tries it. But my point to that is you must get it in people's hands. You have to figure out a budget. You can't make a product and then expect people to have success without people trying it.
I think there's a lot of entrepreneurs that make this cardinal sin, isn't it? That they start their brand, they do their logo, they get invested in what they're building, but unless someone wants to buy what you're selling, you've got nothing.
And I tell people this is something when I'm with my coaching. Yeah, they'll spend thousands on a website, a design, pay for a logo, all the legalese, LLCs. They'll make custom shirts with their brand on it. Also, how many people have tried it? Well, no one yet. So at Quest, and crazy enough you talk about this, Shannon was making the bars by hand in her kitchen, literally by hand. She would put them in, wrap them up, and she would take them to boot camps with her girlfriend, a female, she was training people, right? That was the first indicator that we had something, long before there was a company. They tried them, they liked them, and say, wow, these are amazing. And then Ron would take them they had a technology company, a software company. He would take them to the office, and tech guys who normally would eat Doritos and Red Bulls, not really workout guys, they tried it and said, wow, can we try more? That was the light bulb moment where they said, we've made them by hand. People have tried them and they love them. Regular lay people that would not normally even eat protein bars. So that was the first indicator. And that's why I tell people, if you're making cookies, make them in your kitchen, get them to your friends and family and relatives and everyone in the gym and say, what do you think before I waste a bunch of money on a website? If you want to start an apparel company, make up some, get a fit guy to try it and see how they sweat in it and work out in it before you waste a bunch of money and thousands of dollars having stuff imported only to find out no one wants to wear your stuff because you didn't really test it out,
Yeah, I think that's where like a brand like Gymshark has done really well.
Yeah.
Because obviously Ben and Lewis at the time, they formulated the vest, they sent it to one person, they hand stitched it, then they got it back and they were like, oh, can you change this? Can you change that? Once they had got the fit that fitted most bodybuilders well, they started to produce it in mass, but they didn't do that before they'd tried it on these bodybuilders. I think a lot of people are going out there trying to build brand, like you say, and then they're not not giving it time to refine.
And early on, one thing we did, I forgot, at Quest, early on, if someone wrote us, the blog, and we had Facebook, obviously, once Facebook was going, we would mail them two bars complimentary. If someone wrote us and said, I heard about Quest, boom, they get 2 bars in the mail. And the first thing they would try it, and then people started, what happened was that momentum, like I said, there's a lot of factors in why things happen, right? Because we don't always know why, right? But it took off. And then brands like GNC and Vitamin Shop were calling us saying, hey, I've heard about these bars, which is a very nice compliment to have when people are reaching out to you saying, how do I get you on our shelf? And that happened at Walmart. I think we turned down Walmart 3 times.
And was that part of the positioning plan, you getting it in people's hands in the gyms so that you could then negotiate on shelf space in shops by them getting introduced to you?
Absolutely, because what happened was, and we've all, when I say this too about brands, sometimes we've always been loyal to the fitness and bodybuilding space. That's where we started. Our first event was a bodybuilding show in Culver City, muscle contest, and we never wavered from that. A lot of brands will start at whatever their vertical is, and then next, 2 years later, well, we were doing CrossFit, we're doing bodybuilding, but now we've moved on to something else. We've always stayed loyal to our core, and it's still to this day. And then in turn, those fitness, think about the trainers. Think about a trainer who then influences his 100 clients, right? And we had trainers that say, hey, this is a good go-to snack. It's okay. I'm going to fit this in your meal for your macros and all. And that's what happened. So you had bodybuilders and fitness people recommending us as a dietary or a supplement, if you will.
So you realized early days then that you needed the community in order to fuel the success.
Community. And I say this, any brand that wants to succeed, you need 1,000 screaming fans. 1,000 screaming fans in your multi-million-dollar company, because it doesn't matter whether it's drink, clothing, apparel. If you have 1,000 people screaming about you, you're bound to be successful.
I remember reading the article originally written about 1,000 True Fans by Kevin Kelly, I think it was.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've read that article.
Yep.
And he was saying a similar thing. Like once you've got 1,000 people, if 1,000 people keep telling one other person a week, you can, and those people, because they become raving fans because of the enthusiasm that they've shared your product with, it can exponentially grow.
The number is 1,000. I don't know whether it sounds like a lot. It doesn't sound like a lot to me, but once you have 1,000 people behind you, that's an army. Because like you said, they're telling people at Thanksgiving, they're telling people at the gym. And I've had people come up to me and say, oh yeah, I've tried Quest bars. My friend told me about it yesterday or something. And it just creates that momentum. And that's what happened. And people started writing us, raving about it.
Quick one for you guys. This podcast is sponsored by ContentRemover.com. As many of you are probably aware, I set up ContentRemoval.com in 2017 to help people remove all forms of online content. And I've looked after some of the biggest names and brands in the world doing it. And I would love to help you if you're struggling. If you're struggling to remove images, videos, search results, fake accounts, or anything online, go to ContentRemover.com and we'll help you today. So you created a flywheel of communication with inside the business that allowed it to propel from the inside out, rather than what most businesses are trying to do, which is create a product that they think is good and then put advertising dollars behind it.
They put Google and Facebook ads and everything else thinking, hey, come buy my stuff. And we went the opposite. Try it. You're going to enjoy it. And then they started buying it.
And I thought it was interesting the way the way that the comparison that I'm using is Gymshark to Quest.
Yeah.
How both Gymshark and Quest, obviously 2 different niches of product, but they've both stayed true to their core industry, which is bodybuilding.
Yeah.
So I think one of the key elements of the Quest success story is they never wavered from their core audience, so they were never getting lost in noise.
Yeah, exactly. Never. And we tried some other, and we actually got involved, and as we grew bigger, then obviously what happens once you grow bigger, other people too many opinions start happening, right? When you're nimble and humble, it works seamlessly, right? I got us involved. We did a couple CrossFit events, and we became a household name in CrossFit, which to me is similar to, it's a similar variation of fitness. And, but we had great success overnight there because they coined it. It's crazy enough. We didn't coin it. We didn't even use the term. People would say, oh, you're paleo friendly or paleo acceptable, things that, obviously CrossFitters use at the time, and we became a household name, but that was another vertical we had great success in.
Did you kind of pick the other niches within the fitness industry predicated on what some of the other brands were doing? Like I know early Reebok, because I spoke to the founder of Reebok on this podcast, Joe Foster, and he was saying that they pivoted into CrossFit as well because they saw a market there. First, they pivoted into running and made running a thing, and then they pivot to try and get ahead with Nike, and then they pivoted into aerobics and CrossFit as well. Were you studying brands like that?
No, actually, honestly, the complete truth is one of our sales guys saw me and said, "Hey, Bruce, you got to check out. There's this. It's CrossFit. It's not CrossFit Boston. It's a box, a CrossFit in Boston on the suburbs. Hey, you got to check this place out. They're buying at the time, which was a lot, 30 boxes a month for a CrossFit gym. You know, CrossFit gyms are pretty small. You got to check them out." So I called the owner. He said, "Oh, these are on fire, man. Like these are amazing." And he goes, "As a matter of fact, in 2 weeks we have a WOD, a competition, workout of the day, which, in CrossFit, you should come out." And I thought, shit. So I grabbed one of the guys at work. I said, "We're going to go to this CrossFit event." I didn't even know what CrossFit was, right? You see it on social media maybe a little bit. And I went out to this event and I realized that was the true test. These members, and there were probably 400 people showed up at this event. They all loved the product. They all raved about it. They're the ones that referred, "Hey, it fits within our, what we, paleo, keto friendly, all the things they coined." I went back and said, "We really got to explore this CrossFit stuff." They're bodybuilders diet, right? So even when they're in the hardcore stages of bodybuilding, it's the chicken and broccoli. They'll even cut out Quest bars, right? I said, CrossFitters eat. There's no dieting. They're beasts. They just work out and eat. So they were consuming our product like crazy. So then we did a series called the Garage Games down in Georgia, and then the CrossFit Games themselves. The opportunity came up, and we went there and we launched our chips there, and it was an overnight success. And they invited me out to the Reebok headquarters because that's where the main CrossFit team was, and that was a trial. But we didn't see what other brands did. I saw Reebok was there, and they used to have a nutrition company. I can't think what it's called that was involved, but we tested it in the CrossFit community, and it just took off.
I mean,
yeah,
I think you've hit the nail on the head where you've essentially said, look, we've taken our bars into the communities, the respective communities, not just one community, the bodybuilding community. You took it into CrossFit, you've taken it into other communities as well, and you kind of really seen where your product hits, and you're seeing real time feedback. And obviously, you're giving people product to take away and share with their family and friends, which makes it virality. I suppose they were posting it on social media as well because
for sure.
Because when people get given something, they want to share it.
Yeah, and that kind of became and all of a sudden the big names in CrossFit we're talking about. And I also figured out something. It's funny. I learned two things happened in CrossFit. GNC tried CrossFit. They became a sponsor, and what happened was they failed. CrossFitters were not into pills and potions. They were trying to sell bottles of pills and vitamins, and CrossFitters, for the most part, they eat whole food, right? They never work. GNC, they put a lot of money into it, so that was a true test.
So it's about understanding the communities that you're going into as well.
Yeah, and you have to walk lightly, right? You don't want to just come in and say, "Hey, try this." So
it blew my mind when I listened to another podcast with you, because obviously it was this journey's been so well articulated by you. And obviously one of the things that after 20 minutes of listening to this podcast, I realized was, who is this Ron guy? Because obviously for years I've thought Quest was founded by another entrepreneur, and I kind of got lost in who this Ron guy was. So can you give me the bit of a backstory into the founders of the actual true founders of Quest?
Well, obviously, Shannon and Ron were married. She's been in the fitness space, so she just started. They're foodies, right? So she was just making different products and stumbled across making these bars. Ron has always been in the tech space, but science driven. He's a very intelligent guy, science, nutrition. He'd always talked about, I didn't even know him then actually. He was talking about making some kind of product, and he was talking about supplements at first. And then when she started making these they weren't even bars, whatever they were, squares, he said, wow, this might be something. Now it's something, he thought he had the light bulb moment where this is a consumable item that people will eat 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. There's always going to be someone eating. And that's what happened. And so he basically, behind the scenes, he went to his partners at the time, and they literally walked out of the meeting. He said, I have this idea for this nutrition company, these protein bars. And they said, Ron, we're in the software space. You know what I mean? Like, let's stick with what we know. So behind the scenes, he built out a website with a gentleman named Michael Venny, who I've known for years. And he tested the website. And I guess in the simplest layman's terms, they made some fake orders and then canceled them. And people were into it. They're trying to, and he said, listen, he went to Mike and said, here's the results of this test we're running. And they reluctantly said, okay, let's try it. And so they made the first rounds of bars at a kitchen space. They rented kitchen space. So they're making the bars by hand, popped them up on the website, and they sold out immediately. And they said, okay, shoot, this might be something. Let's make another round of bars. And I'm talking about 1,000 at a time. I'm not talking about a lot. Boom, they sold out again. And at the time, they used, Shannon was into fitness, and they used Shannon's dad, who was still alive and as an icon in the bodybuilding space, and they put him on the website, and it became that word of mouth thing. It literally became a word of mouth where people were just trying it. We got in people's hands, bodybuilding shows, and people started saying, "Where do I get these Quest bars?" And it just that snowball effect.
And Tom Bouyu was actually a copywriter.
Yeah, he was a copywriter at the tech company, and Ron was obviously the founder and came up with this idea, and then they took Tom and said, "Hey, we need to head over and run Quest." So he became a partner, by that way.
Yeah, beautiful. And obviously, like when it was coming to exit Quest, did Ron, when he first started this, did he build it to sell it, or was he building it as a passion project? Because a lot of people say, and you'll attest to this, don't go out of your lane. Just find something which works, which makes you money, which Ron had with his software stuff. When you find it, just drill straight into that and don't step out of your lane. But he's obviously decided to go into this fitness thing as a passion project. Did he ever dream of exiting it?
I think early on when he first started it, I don't think anyone knew of the success. I thought, okay, we'll have a protein bar company, right? I don't know at that time. We talked about it lightly then, but I don't think there was ever a vision of this could be something huge, right? Hey, we have a side hustle. They have the tech company, and we have the side hustle, and I think it just evolved to the point where, oh wow, and then private equity and people started talking to us, and actually my friend did the investment, the first investment with the company. I don't think that was an initial thought. I mean, obviously now that we've evolved, now Ron, it's interesting. Alex Ramosi had mentioned recently. I either heard it or wherever it was, that he said there's been less than 1,000 billion-dollar brands in the world. I think it was 1,000 or 1,500. And a unicorn, which Quest is because it sold for $1 billion cash. Now Ron is working on a second brand, which is legendary, which will probably be evaluated at $1 billion in 3 years. So think about that. $2 billion brands under the same leadership.
And he's still involved in...
He's involved day to day. He runs R&D. So he's never taken his eye off the R&D. And that's one thing, if you look back at the Quest days, our R&D team weren't guys with PhDs. They were just a bunch of guys and girls. Like people, Shannon would take the recipes and say, hey, you guys need to scale it. But we had a food scientist, obviously, about water activation. But at the end of the day, Ron really was the go-to for everything we did. A lot of self-taught people, a lot of just kids coming out of high school, just, hey, I'd love to be in this food space.
Was it a struggle to formulate the consistency of the bars and get all that right? Because I know you were talking about just there about the exposure to the moisture rate in the bar.
Yeah, early on, they had this great formula, and they were great when she made them in the kitchen because the people would eat them in the next weekend, right? But then what happens is water activation, food molds, it rots, right? So that was something we did have to hire someone to figure out the water activation. And the other thing is, like Ron says it best, they were just going to be a marketing company. Quest was going to literally be a marketing company. They would have someone else make the product. But when they took let's just call it the dough, the metrics of the product, when they took it to manufacturers and they tried to run it through the equipment, it wouldn't work because it was too, it wasn't pliable enough, right? So everyone we tried to get to make it said, well, if you add agave or honey or some liquid, get something to make it more pliable, which would defeat the whole recipe, right? Let's add all this sugar. And so we ended up buying some used equipment and basically jerry-rigged it and figured out how to make it work. Mike Osborne did that, and that was like how we started making them in our own equipment. But it was not by choice. It was we had to.
So right the way through the Quest journey, then you've always manufactured your own product.
Yes, all from day one. Day one until, so funny, we fast forward, we end up having, I think, a peak of 1,400 employees. Only 140 in the headquarters as far as sales, marketing, all that stuff, but everyone else was at manufacturing. I think we had almost 1 million square feet of between shipping and manufacturing and robotics and all these machines. And then 8 years into the journey, we bring in a CEO, and he says, why are you guys manufacturing your own product? Now, the world's obviously evolved, right? So now other companies can make it. So now everything is now farmed out.
Yeah.
But at that time, we spent millions on equipment because no one knew how to make it.
Does farming it out to other manufacturers and having partnerships like that bring the cost of the product down?
Oh, tremendously. Yeah. Think about that. We had 1,400 employees. Then you go back down to 140 employees, and there's nothing. It's all off our back, right?
And what difference did that make to the margin of the product?
I don't know that exact math, but obviously it's more profitable, right? And then we also centralized where we had, manufacturing in the Midwest, on the East Coast, and on West Coast. So you had equal distribution as far as shipping too.
And and obviously then you can use 3PLs to put
Yeah,
your
all
product
that, yeah.
rather than having your own
Yeah.
warehousing.
And now everyone does it. Now, fast forward 2023, everyone has someone else make their product. You have obviously proprietary things and all, but then, everyone uses 3PLs. No one owns their own shipping anymore.
As someone like yourself who claims to be, even though you are an entrepreneur in my opinion, but you claim yourself as this entrepreneur within
Right.
businesses, how can other people that might be listening to this who feel like they need to align with someone else, they don't feel like they can do it on their own, but they resonate with what you're saying, they believe they can go out and build relationships with people, what would you tell them to look for in the entrepreneur that they invest their time in?
As an entrepreneur or an entrepreneur?
No, as an entrepreneur.
And by the way, I realize, because I've talked to a lot of people, and say, that's not possible where I work, Bruce, because I'm a 9-to-5 guy. I know it can't always work. Maybe seek out where there's a new startup company. I always talk to people. I like to help people get involved with business and find out if there's a spot for you to, hey, let me come in and bring value and work my way into something. Now, I didn't write a check when Quest started, right? I didn't invest in it, but I created sweat equity. So while I was an employee, I was an entrepreneur, and I found holes in the game. So I was always looking for opportunities to create more business opportunities and build the company. Everyone could do that. Whether, like I said, I go back to real estate. Yes, it's not easy. You have to be willing to think outside the box and know what else I can do and what else the company needs, and it'll be seen. I always say this, it's not hard to be a top 10%er, right? It's not hard to bring value. And if ownership sees that, look, I'm a prime example. The founder saw it, and I ended up having equity based on the efforts I put into the company, which I had no expectation of that. So the opportunities are there. Are they easy to find? No. And I get it. A lot of people are quite content, 9 to 5, punch a check, punch a clock. But I also say this, everyone should have a side hustle, right? If you're working your day job, no reason you can't get off work. And whether you're a personal trainer, you're a chef, you sell stuff on eBay, there's so many opportunities now to make side money, flipping things on these Facebook pages. So the opportunity is always there to make money. Is it always easy to be an entrepreneur? No.
I think it comes down to the hunger you have and the type of lifestyle you want.
Yeah.
And I think what you established early days, probably earlier from your dad, is you saw his work ethic, and you also saw how he treated the family and how he treated other people.
Right.
So you saw that, but you also saw that you're like, I want to build on his legacy and what he's done. I want to go through that, and you've gone through the gears with that kind of mentality. Like, I just want to deliver value to the world.
Right.
Whereas people, like we said before, are coming to the world with expecting, they'll do a couple of things for people and then they expect the value to come. Whereas you're like, no, you never stop giving.
You never stop giving. And I tell people, so, Quest was a 9-year journey, right? And I would say for sure, at least six of those years, I was on the road 40 weekends a year. There's only 52 weeks, right? Mm. And I only by default, because of Christmas and things like that, there was nowhere to go, right? Because there was no events, there was no opportunities. So I never stopped. And I think that's why, like I said, once you're in it and you're in it to win it, I tell people this, imagine being an intern somewhere, which I was. I was just helping them for free, even though I had my own business. Going fast forward 9 years later to have equity in a $1 billion brand, who would not do that, right? Mm. And there's also something, I just picked it up on another, I don't know where I was at a speech, and I think maybe Dan Fleischman said it. There's over 3 million businesses that, because they're owned by baby boomers, are either going to close or they're for sale. So I always tell people this, there's always opportunities to look at these small businesses, like talk about a side hustle, right? A friend of mine just bought a couple laundromats. The owner was 75 years old. He didn't have any family to give it to her. And he just said, my friend took it over and he worked out a deal where he's going to pay him, a couple bucks a month, forever, right? But so there's always side hustles, there's always opportunities, there's always ways to make money. I think you just have to find them and put the effort in and never stop.
And like you say, that I think the deep ingrained why that you've always had, and you've always, everything you've touched, you've always even whether you've had ownership in the physical reality or not at that particular time, you've always took it as your own. And I think that's what's giving you your attention to detail, which is more than what other people. And I think a lot of people that listen to this should learn that from you. You just because it's not your company doesn't mean that you're not invested in it the same way that other people are.
Yeah, I call it pride and ownership. And it became a matter of factly, a lot of people thought that I was the founder of Quest when I was out and about and traveling. And there was even times where I'd be interviewed by someone and say, well, when did you start the company? And I'd have to explain the whole story. And they still doubted me. I think people thought, oh, come on, you're just being humble. And even sometimes when I was with Ron in public, and they'd start talking to me and say, well, who's this guy? So he's actually the founder. And they said, oh, come on, you're the founder. So people just thought that because when you're out and about every day and you're at every event and you're at every opportunity and you're at GNC headquarters and you're everywhere you are, they assumed, well, he's got to be the founder. Who would be doing this if not the founder? So I call it pride and ownership. Take ownership and show the actual owners that you care enough that it's not just a 9-to-5 job.
And what would your advice be to the people then that are listening that are stuck in something now that they can't, for whatever reason, find pride in it?
Listen, that's not always easy. I get it, right? I've been fortunate enough to have a couple good whys in my life. Being a police officer in the security business and the nutrition space, I think you're while you listen. Money facilitates things in life, right? We need to pay our bills. I get you need a job, but that doesn't mean you can't look beyond that and see what else. What do I really want to do? I'm not saying quit your day job to be a screenwriter, right? But that doesn't mean you can't write on the side if you want to be, or you want to be a singer or a comedian or whatever you're really passionate about. I still think you owe it to yourself. I mean, nothing worse than regrets in life, right? Being on your deathbed and say, hey, I wish I had done that instead of just trying it, you know?
Yeah. Obviously, when you were looking after all these top celebrities, did you just build that initially from just looking after one celebrity, then giving so much value that they told their friends and their friends? Is that as simple as it was to build that business?
Yeah, secure. Well, for me anyway, it's interesting you say that because that goes back to, once again, relationships, meeting their expectations and exceeding them. And there's also a lot of factors involved with the security business because I call it social cues, EQ. Like you have to switch gears, right? So I'm an extrovert when it comes to this and talking about nutritional products, but when it comes to security, you have to really step back and be like a wallflower, right? But I did things, and a lot of it was word of mouth. Like I picked up the chairman of Sony Music by a referral, and then in turn I'm taking care of his wife, Mariah Carey. And then once I did that, then someone else would call me and say, hey, I heard you're traveling with Mariah Carey. Can you help me out? I have a stalker. And it really became a word of mouth. But what I was really more known for is my planning and logistics and really staying out of the way. And security is a tough business. I've had clients that are with me for 20 years, and there's very little conversation with me. It's normally with the assistant or something, but and people can't get their head around that. But I am just there to provide a service. I'm not there to be your friend. And actually, one of my clients early on told me that. Said, listen, we'll have a long relationship, Bruce, as long as it remains business. We've had people we've hired in the past that want to get too comfortable, become friendly. And it's something that I just inherently have learned how to do.
So the good thing about that is you've learned how to do it, but not to take offense to it. Whereas I think a lot of other security professionals or a lot of other professionals, but in whatever business, would take offense to that.
Yeah.
So how did you discern what to, like, how did you discern not to take offense to certain things in life? Because that's something I've just picked that up from you right there. I'm like, wow, hold on a minute.
Yeah.
It's actually profound when you think about it, because you've said, I'm happy to sit in for 20 years and never speak to you and keep you as a client.
Yeah.
But most people, that would do their heads in business.
I have friends of mine that say, wait, I understand. Wait, you don't talk to your client? I said, no, there's nothing to say. Even when I've met them and they'll get in the vehicle flying in privately, they'll get in the car, they're already on the phone. Now they might say, how's it going? I'll say, great, sir. That's it. I know not to say great, sir, but there's no other conversation. Or it's like, what goes back to social cues, right? When someone says, how are you doing? No one really wants to hear you say, well, to be honest with you, I feel like shit. And no one really wants to hear that. So it's just a courtesy. And I've just learned over these years, I've literally been to restaurants with the same client day in and day out. And they'll say, Bruce, you want to join us for dinner? And I'll be at the bar. They know now not to even invite me. But the problem is people in my field will say, oh, they invited me to sit with them. I guess I should, right? But I've gained so much more respect because they know Bruce is always looking out for me. He's never going to cross the line. The only time I've lost clients when I tried to scale my business because it became, they wanted me, right? And there was a time I couldn't make it. And someone really famous, one of the biggest names in the world, was going to Mexico to film a video. I couldn't make it. And I sent this guy and I said, here's the deal. You got to be professional. The client was working out in the gym and he decided to give her some pointers on working out, which that was okay. That was one bad mark, right? And then 3 nights in, they keep inviting him to dinner, and he's like, no, I'll sit at the bar. And the last night, they said, well, it's the last night, come join us. So he sat at the table with them. He ended up drinking wine. So I didn't know any of this was going on, but when they came back, the manager said, hey, come by and see me. And I met him, and he said, listen, your guy was great, except he was giving fitness pointers, which we didn't hire him to be a fitness coach. And then he sat with us at dinner, which you've never done, Bruce, so this is weird. Why is this guy sitting at our table? And then he drank wine. And when I talked to the guy, his response was, I couldn't help myself. I go, what's that mean? Well, I saw her, she was doing tricep extensions wrong. I go, we didn't hire you to be a trainer. I see people every day in the gym that don't know how to do stuff, but I don't get involved. So my point is this, he didn't have the social intelligence to think, I'm here to be a bodyguard. Let me stand in the corner and be quiet. Let me help you train. Let me tell you to do things. So that's been my success. And I've even had artists that have said to me, they know my name and they know I'm around and they don't take care of business. And I get them in and out of places and I plan. And know I'm planning all this because things run seamlessly. One of the biggest artists in the world said, have you ever thought about creating a management company? I said, no, not really. He said, well, you should, because you're always thinking about what people need and you're not asking, but you just see what I need because you see what I'm dealing with and you just get it done. My manager doesn't do that, Bruce. So I just like, once again, I'm a servant leader. I say that best. I like serving people. I'm okay not being the front guy. I'm okay being behind the scenes. And it's okay, but not people, people can't switch gears.
I've learned so much about myself in that, because I realized that earlier on in my life, I've got involved in too much stuff that was none of my business, right? Which I think we all have to do. Yeah. I've obviously learned that over the years, but it profoundly landed with me when you said that, because it's like, like you've been paid to be a security guard. Yeah. You're not paid to be at the table, drink wine. You're not paid to offer some girl fitness advice. You're just paid to make sure that she gets from her room She's to safe. The gym. Yeah. That's it. And it's really about, in your business, understanding exactly what you're paid to do. Yeah. Over delivering on what you're paid to do, but not getting involved in anything that you're not asked to get involved with.
And I could use that in any analogy. A camera guy in a podcast, we're paying you to do the cameras, we're not asking you to create narrative. I mean, anything. And it's not always easy, because I've been with clients and I've even heard them misspeak. And I don't say a word because they're not looking at me. I've had clients say, hey, we should go here for dinner. I heard it's a great restaurant. I don't say a word. Now, I've had clients then turn to me and say, hey, Bruce, this is your town. Is that place decent? I said, I don't know anyone that goes there. But I'll share the least amount of information because it's not my position. You know what I mean? You could Google a good restaurant. You can call someone else. Unless you're looking me in the eye and say, Bruce, where should we go tonight? I don't know.
So you've essentially realized that most people that ask these kind of questions don't give, for want of a better word, give a fuck what you think anyway. Yeah. So why would you give more information and incriminate yourself more than what you should?
Exactly.
And it's just, Bruce, this is like, I can hear pennies dropping all over.
Yeah, all over less information is best. But on the other hand, I could switch gears now. If you said, hey, let's talk about protein bars. Hey, let's go. What are we talking about? Whey protein. But now that's a different, like that. In my brain, I know I switch gears.
You've got discernment that most 90% of the world doesn't have the discernment to understand what you've said.
Exactly. And a good example, I have friends of mine that I know, they'll say, how come you didn't invite me certain places? And I had to finally say to one of my friends, I said, because I'm going to give you an example. I've been invited to the White House before. I've been invited to places like are crazy. I'm always like, how am I here? I told one of my friends, I'm bringing you to this place, but realize I'm a guest of a guest. So there's a pecking order, right? There's the host. My friend invited me. I'm inviting you. So when the big name is up there talking, we can't go, hey, how you doing, man? We're here just to observe. And some people can't. Once I told my friend, I don't want you don't go trying to tackle this guy. Don't try and ask him for his autograph. Because 300 other people are telling him how great his work is tonight. Don't say that to him. And I have friends that can't help themselves. Yeah. Sometimes it's okay just to be there, be a guest, enjoy the moment. Don't break out your phone. I mean, I was pretty fortunate. 2 weeks ago, I went and saw Sting in concert, right? I've worked with him over the years, and my friend's done transportation for years, so he invited me to the Hollywood Bowl. Afterwards, there was a private, his birthday party at a restaurant. It might have been 60 people. That's it. There wasn't a phone out, and there was no awkward conversation, and like everyone in that room got it. They understood. Sting's been an icon. He invited friends and family. Other than say, hey, thanks for having me, that was it. There was nothing else said. But not everyone would know how to do that. Instead of going, hey, I'm a big fan of your music. Of course you are. Everyone's a big fan of your music.
Yeah.
But how many times do you hear that?
I was training the other day in the gym, and Arnold Schwarzenegger was next to me, and everyone's up there going up to him, going, "Oh, hey, Arnie, can I have a picture of you?" This and the other. And I just like nodded.
Yeah.
Nodded. Are you done with those weights? I'll use the weights. Treat him like a normal human being, because like at the end of the day, that's all he is. He's a normal human.
Yeah.
I'm a normal human being. As soon as you put someone on a pedestal, start asking for photos, you put yourself in fan mode. Once you're in fan mode, you've lost the mutual respect that you both had for each other, because you didn't put yourself in the right frame. And I think that's what you're saying, is always put yourself in the right frame.
Yeah. He's been a client on and off for years, by the way. If you look at my old photos, he's
phenomenal.
But yeah, and I tell people, I work out at Gold's too, and I have friends visiting from out of town. They say, oh my God, there's Arnold. I said, listen, if you want a picture with him, don't interrupt his workout. Wait till he's leaving, walking out, and say, can I get a selfie? And not everyone can. Sometimes people can't control themselves.
People, because of I think discernment is the best word for what you're teaching here.
I think I'm going to write a book on that one day. Yeah.
Look, I think it's been phenomenal, the insights that you've given people on this, and I think some of these points, if they do not land, guys, I encourage you to listen to this twice, just to let what Bruce is saying there land with you, because it's going to change your whole life and the way you operate your whole business, if you can discern when and when not to get involved in certain stuff. But if there was one piece of advice, one pearl of wisdom that you could instill in this audience and impart before you leave this podcast today, that would move everyone in this audience 1% further forward from today, Bruce, what would it be?
I'm going to say a couple things, but bring value and have no expectation in return. It'll come back tenfold on you. But truly, just bring value to people, and don't ask them how to bring value. You see what people do. You're around people. You're around coworkers and friends and family. Just bring them value. It'll come back tenfold. Because those deposits you make, you will eventually either ask for a favor, or those people are going to remember you and say, that person took care of me a bunch of times and did all these things for me, and I didn't ask for anything in return. And then the phone starts ringing. I think that's one thing I could say.
I love it, Bruce. And thank you so much for your time today, mate. And guys, do me a solid favor. Yeah, like and subscribe on all the platforms. Share this with someone who gets too involved in their business and gets beyond their station, because I think this is going to resonate with them on such a epic level. And Bruce, thank you again for your time.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. This was fun.
Yeah, man. It's great. I wish we could do longer, but we're time constrained. Yeah. We're time constrained where we are, but we've tried to get it all in. But guys, much love. I appreciate all of you. Ciao. Guys, do me a solid favor. Drop a comment below this video and let us know who you want on the podcast next.